Hello, everyone. Welcome to Bookshop. Thank you so
Hello.
much for joining us. Do you want to say hello, everybody, before I get started on my intro?
Well,
Hello,
first of
hello,
all,
hello, everyone.
me and Gary got a bone to pick with Spencer, man. I give Gary credit. He came in dressed sharp, like he was going to preach a sermon, and then so I had to sneak away and put something on. I'm still not as sharp as Gary. I had to put something on to look all right, and then Spencer comes out with not only a Hall of Fame polo on, but his actual Hall of Fame jacket. So
Yeah.
now it looks like me and Gary got like scrubs on or something. He's showing Gary. He's showing us out, man.
Well, since we didn't have it
Not
this
fair.
year, and I usually hang out with Gary up there, but
I know.
this is a good tribute to Kobe,
We'll be there in
Kevin
May.
Garnett, Tim Duncan.
Yeah.
Be there in May.
Yeah.
Or later.
May, I think it's scheduled for May. So yeah, we'll be back there in May.
Well, I'm hoping the world is better, so me and Spencer could be there too. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
And dress just as nicely, dress just as sharp or sharper. Who knows? So if you can't tell, we're about to have a really great event. This is so exciting. We're ending a historic year with genuinely historic people who have made absolute history, changing this country in so many ways. And Spencer Haywood leading the pack here for our celebration of the book, The Spencer Haywood Rule, with co-authors Marc J. and Gary Washburn. So I'm going to do a little intro really quickly about Bookshop and introducing all of you. And then we will just go into a kind of guided conversation. I'll give you some points to hit. I'll let you all talk and have a great time. And then we'll do Q&A at about 25 minutes in, everybody. Okay, so if you're watching, you can see the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. Please submit Q&A around 25 minutes, and the authors will take your questions around then. And then we'll wrap.
We got a lot of people in here. I need y'all to ask questions. I see you, Bobby, Bochi. I see Grady. I see you out there. I see all y'all out there. Ask us some questions. Ski, I see Ski Austin. What's up, Ski?
Mark, man, this ain't the Source Awards where we shouting everybody out, man. Let's get some discussion, man. It ain't BET Awards, man. You know, little monster Pookie out there. You know, like, come on, man. Let's start.
I see Miss Houghton out there too, Gary.
Start the convo, man.
All right.
Who you have out there?
All right. So, okay, so we'll do that, and then we'll get into our shout outs as well as our conversation. So thank you again to all three of you. And of course, especially to Spencer Haywood here. So again, welcome to Bookshop. And tonight we are celebrating Spencer Haywood and the book, The Spencer Haywood Rule, here again with our co-authors, Marc and Gary. And one more time, 25 minutes in, please submit your questions using the Q&A icon below if you're with us live. If you are not actually, of course, we probably will just have to take some maybe later. Maybe we can get them to you. But that said, this is recorded. This will be on YouTube at a later date on Bookshop's YouTube channel. And apologies here to everyone who's live if we can't get to your question in time. Thank you for your understanding. So again, I'm Angela. I work with Bookshop special programs and marketing. And we're going to take a few minutes to talk about Bookshop. Then we'll introduce our honored guests. So again, first word about Bookshop. Every purchase you make on bookshop.org, especially for books like this one tonight, Spencer Haywood Rule, directly supports independent and local bookstores. Bookshop is an online bookstore with a mission to help financially support independent bookstores because we believe that bookstores are essential to a healthy culture. So as more and more people buy their books online, even before quarantine, we wanted to create an easy and convenient way for you to get your books and support bookstores at the same time, especially from those stores whose e-commerce capacity or inventory space we can help supplement. So as a standard, Bookshop always encourages customers to buy books directly from a local bookstore whenever possible. So if some reason you cannot do so, then you can come to bookshop.org, find your local store and more stores on our map, on our website, and they'll receive the full profit off your order. Otherwise, your order will contribute to an earnings pool that will be evenly distributed among independent bookstores. So you can also become an advocate for free by creating an affiliate page, which pays 10% commission as well. and gives a matching 10% to independent bookstores and the earnings pool too. By design, Bookshop gives away over 75% of our profit margin to stores, the publications, authors, and others who make up the thriving inspirational culture around books. So we hope that bookshop.org can help strengthen the fragile ecosystem and margins around book selling and keep local bookstores an integral part of our culture and communities, especially right now, especially when they need you most into 2021 here. Bookshop is a benefit corporation, a corporation dedicated to public good. So without further ado, now introduction for our guest today, which is, again, a genuine honor. We'll start with Spencer Haywood, is an American former professional basketball player and Olympic gold medalist. Haywood is a member of the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame, being inducted in 2015. In 1968, he burst onto the international scene as a teenager with a revelatory performance at the Mexico City Olympics. Born into indentured servitude in rural Mississippi, Haywood went on to be the ABA Rookie of the Year and MVP in the same season. His winding journey off the court has seen him challenge the NBA's draft entry rules and win at the Supreme Court level, and in which case you don't know, Spencer Haywood rule title of the book does reference, plus become as well as remain a legendary advocate for athletes' rights. Spencer, thank you so much for being with us. And Marc J. Spears, everyone, is a senior NBA writer for ESPN's The Undefeated. The Bay Area native is a former college basketball player who has 21 years of experience covering the NBA. An award-winning journalist, he is also former chair of the National Association of Black Journalists, the co-producer of the award-winning documentary Katrina Cop in the Superdome. Spears also has an MBA from Louisiana State University and a bachelor's from San Jose State University. And Gary Washburn, the other co-author of the Spencer Haywood Rule, is the national NBA writer for the Boston Globe. He also serves as vice president print for the NABJ Sports Task Force. So again, cannot express how excited we are to have you all here tonight. So to our audience, once more, if you have not bought the book just yet, you can go on bookshop.org, find your favorite store or local store on our map, and purchase the Spencer Haywood Rule. So the full credit goes to that store. So
Show them the book, Spencer.
Let's do this. So can we start with talking about how this book was written, how it was divided among you, how this all started, how it actually got done?
I guess I should start. I got a call from Bill Duffy, and he, well, Spencer, you know what? You tell the story. Tell the story about Bill and how.
Okay. Well, what happened was I had been talking with the former commissioner of the NBA, David Stern, as well as with Charlie Rosenzweig. We are just talking about trying to get this book done. I've been working on the idea of getting it done for years. And I got in touch with my agent, Bill Duffy, and he mentioned Marc Spears. And I was like, the great Marc Spears? Yes. And I know Marc from his work in Denver, and also my former friend who passed on, Lonnie Lynn, always sing his praises. Wow. And that's Common's father, wow, the artist. And so I was like, oh yeah, man, if we can get him, that would be cool. And when Marc got involved, and then he had to have a wedding or something that had to take place, and then we looked for the ad on for the writer, and lo and behold, here's Gary Washburn from Seattle. I mean, not from Seattle, but he wrote with the Seattle Times as well as the Boston Globe. So here I am, like, it's so special to have the will of God or the Most High come in and make all of this happen, because it was not supposed to be this way and this perfect, but it did turn out just great and perfect. So to have those writers on my book, and it's been awesome. I mean, we've gotten endorsements from the commissioner of the NBA. Oh, Marc, Gary, take it, my friends. Y'all are the greatest.
No, I was, I remember when Bill gave me that call, and I think I could speak for Gary in this, that, you know, it's been certainly frustrating for a lot of Black sports writers. We haven't had much opportunities to write books. So when I was given an opportunity to write Spencer's book, I was certainly honored to do so, and wanted to do it, and wanted to write my first book. I think because of the upcoming NBA season and not having a lot of rest in between seasons, you kind of could get overwhelmed and have too much on your shoulder. And Gary knows when the season's over, man, the last thing we wanted to do was rest. So I just had a random conversation. I mean, the last thing we want to do is write. I had a random conversation with Gary and told him the situation. He's like, man, you got to do it. You got to do it. And then it just kind of hit me. I was like, nah, Gary, why don't you do it with me? You know what I mean? And I know Gary was in the same situation. And, you know, Gary's been a sports writer for, you know, he's covered the Clippers, he's covered the Sonics, he's covered the Celtics. He's got a great amount of not only sports writing experience, but NBA experience. And I was certainly honored to do the book with him. And I think it made it easier for both of us to, you know, share the duties. And after Spencer's side agreed to it, and I'll let Gary explain his part, I actually was in Las Vegas during summer league, and I think I went to Spencer's house or went to his house for 2 straight days. And then one day we were at some, you know, he lived in Vegas, but he had some suite and some at Caesar's Palace or something. And I think I literally spent like 6 hours each day, like for about 5 to 6 hours each day interviewing Spencer to get all the my interviews done. And shout out to my cousin Cameron Hay, who I didn't want to use a computer service, but he transcribed everything, and I was able to write chapters 1 through 7. And Gary, I'll let you take over. You did the rest.
Well, I was familiar with Spencer from my days in Seattle, obviously covering the Sonics, and he's one of the great Sonics of all time. And I was there the night he got his number retired finally in Seattle. And so from those conversations, I knew, and I mean, and I had my, you know, I collect basketball memorabilia, basketball cards. So I got Spencer Haywood basketball cards. So I've known this man from his playing career, and, you know, knowing what he was able to accomplish and being the first person to kind of break these barriers. And I definitely wanted to help tell his story because it was a fascinating story and a story that's been overlooked and overshadowed. He's a person that everyone, all these young guys were watching on television, the Giannis's, LeBron's, all should pay homage to because he was the first one. He took all the bullets. You know, all these, Julius Erving came after him, all these players who skipped college or went to college for 1 or 2 years and were able to easily go into the NBA. And now we talk about these things like it's nothing and it's not a big deal because it really isn't now. That's because of Spencer, because back then he had to prove hardship. He had to prove that he needed to put money in his mother's pocket who was picking cotton in Mississippi. He had to, you know, fight against a system, a racist system that did not want, believe it or not, the NBA did not want young black men in the NBA because the NBA was, in the 1969-70 was a mostly white league, and the owners, all of whom were white, except, and that's the same now, except 2, wanted to keep the league that way. They did not want young inner city players, even though Spencer probably, and I'm sure he says, I asked him this, he says, Will Robinson would have slapped him upside his head, but Spencer could have gone straight from high school to the NBA. And he was that good. So it wasn't, you know, he didn't need the University of Detroit. He didn't need Trinidad State College, but he went there because that's what people did. But then when it was his time, he made it his time. And so I felt obligated to tell this story of such a fascinating man. As Marc said, he's like the Black Forrest Gump. He's been everywhere. He's done everything. He's got millions of stories on and off the floor. He's overcome a lot of obstacles. And it was just a pleasure to tell this story. And I said, I got a chance to go to his house in Las Vegas and also called him on the phone, and we had 3 separate 2-hour conversations. And Spencer didn't have any issues, didn't mind me to ask the same questions twice, was always accommodating. And I definitely appreciate that.
Well, thank you both. Thank you both so much. And, you know, the book starts off in this place called Silver City, Mississippi. And let me remind everyone on this call and on Zoom here that it ain't no city and it don't have any silver. It's a population of 375 people. It's in rural Mississippi. the primary source of work was picking cotton, planting cotton, and chopping cotton. So I learned to work from sun up to sundown because that's how we survived. And we never could survive because we were only being paid $2 a day. And that was up until I got into the pros. So what happened was I worked through the process of just picking cotton. And I wanted to be, this was my first big dream of what I wanted to be. I wasn't an athlete. It wasn't anything because I had no parameters for which to pull from. So I wanted to be the best cotton picker our county had seen. And so I was really practicing and working on it as a cotton picker. And I learned later on when I got to the NBA and also into the Olympics and everything that my hard work in that field, in that cotton field, accelerated me to be better than a normal athlete. So it was just so awesome. And I remember also my first time that we had a basketball. We didn't have a real basketball in Silver City because we were dirt poor. So my mother made my first basketball out of a sack, and she put all kinds of cotton and stuff in it and made it round, and we put up us a barrel rim that no one could miss a shot on. And we finally found a basketball and a real rim at the garbage dump in the back of my home. And that's when I started playing basketball. And I mean, to feel like basketball when it bounced and it comes back to your hand, it was like, oh, this is glory. And so I just started loving it, from that point on. But yet I hadn't left out of Mississippi. So I finally got a chance to get out of Mississippi. My brother took me over to Bowling Green State University because he was a student there and an athlete there. And he decided to bring me into Detroit, and he brought me into Detroit to play against all of the high school All-Americans and the high school players that were in Detroit. I played against them, did real well. And then the next round of playoffs, I played against the college players, which was Cassie Russell and all of the great All-Americans from Michigan, Michigan State, and Central Michigan, and all of those schools. And then my last cycle of that day was to play a little bit with the pros. And I got a chance to play against the great Dave Bean, Jimmy Walker, which is Jalen Rose's father, and all of those pros. And Will Robinson said, hey, this guy could be the one who take us to this Class A state champion, because in the city of Detroit, there had been a drought for 35 years. And I remember my first meeting with the team, and Will Robinson said, well, we have been playing with mules, and now we got a horse, and we're gonna ride him all the way to the state championship. And lo and behold, we did win the state championship and broke the record after 35 years. It was just awesome. That was my coming right into that journey there. And the next step was going off to college. I was being recruited by all of the colleges because I had worked real hard in high school to try to get that B average and maintain it. I maintained it in my senior year, but I was available to go to college. So I signed with the University of Tennessee, knowing that my mother had never seen me play because she couldn't come up north to Detroit with me.
Spencer, don't tell them the whole book.
Yes, sir.
I want them to buy the book. You want to tell them the whole book?
No, I'm not.
Right no, man, don't be giving them the whole book.
Don't give them the book. Okay.
You trying to tell them?
You guys join in, man.
I'm getting emotional just listening to you. So I mean, maybe we should dial it back so I don't start, getting a little too weepy on the screen too. No, that's.
Mark, tell me about your parts. Mark, when you were writing and asking me questions, I remember you were like looking at me. You're like, you had roadkill.
Yeah, no, I think.
Can you give them a little bit?
I think the thing that stands out to me, it certainly is kind of funny, is like, hey, a lot of my family's from Louisiana, so we eat some funny stuff. But one thing that stood out to me is like Spencer used to eat possum, like shoot possums, find fresh roadkill, and said he eat ate that. He used to raise pigs. His nickname is, one of his 30 nicknames is Weedy. And Gary, this shows how, this certainly dates Spencer. He said he used to get chickens in a box, like little baby chickens in a box, and had to raise them. And then they would cook the chickens and eat them. But the one guy that stood out to me, which why I think this would be a hell of a like mini series on Netflix or something, is Spencer had a guy named Mr. Bootyface that used to come to his house and kill the pigs and castrate the pigs and cut their jingle bells off, or in the Christmas season, they just say cut the jingle bells off and put them in a skillet and eat them in front of Spencer and his family. And Spencer and his siblings would say, Mr. Bootyface, can we please have some of those jingle bells? And they're like, no, you can't. Those are all for me. And I asked Spencer, I'm like, why y'all call the man Mr. Bootyface? And he simply said, as Spencer does so eloquently, because his face looked like a booty. So that's like, Mr. Bootyface is like my favorite, outside of Spencer, that's my favorite character in the book, Gary.
We got to find, God bless him. I'm sure he's passed on, but God bless Mr. Bootyface.
Yeah.
That's a good segue. So what were your favorite parts of writing this then? For each of you, what were your favorite parts of talking about Spencer's life and accomplishments, in addition to that man?
For me, it was Chris's relationship with his mother. I thought I was really touched by, there's the one story where he and his wife, and Spencer, as many men did in those days, dabbled with Islam and decided not to eat pork. And him and his wife dropped their daughter off in Mississippi with his mom.
Who's that wife?
With his mom to stay for a few weeks, and decide they're gonna buy some beef bacon for the daughter because they don't want her eating pork, and that just didn't go over well with mom. Mom fed that child pork bacon, and they just couldn't do nothing about it. Like, there's some things that mom do, and it might not be right, but you just keep your mouth shut. And basically, she's like, you're not gonna tell what to feed my grandbaby, and I ain't feeding her no beef bacon. I'm gonna feed her some pork bacon. That was one of my favorite stories. And his relationship with his mother really touched me. Being a single mom, her only coming to Seattle one time to visit him and not wanting to move from Mississippi. He could have given her the world, gotten her a huge house, and he bought her a Cadillac, and she was fine with that because she could take and drive all her friends to church. And that's all she wanted. But he could have done so much for her, and he wanted to, and he did, but she could not let go of that Mississippi lifestyle. And it was ingrained in her. And I just thought that was touching of all of where Spencer's been all over the world, the Olympics, Italy, New York, all these places. And there's his mom, Eunice, in Mississippi, just going to church every Sunday, living a life. And Spencer wanted to bring her to Seattle, because he loved his mom, and he brought his brothers and sisters to live with him. But his mother was like, no, I'm staying right here in Silver City. This is where I'm from. This is where I am. And I found that his relationship with his mother fascinating because he was the youngest, and his father died when he was very young. So it was that was the most fascinating story, just with his mom and just the ups and downs that he went through, and how she always preached to him, God, Jesus, like she always went to the Bible with him, always said, the difference between right and wrong. The difference, you're not supposed to be doing these things. That I taught you. And he did. And that's the one thing I think when people generally all know the difference between right and wrong, we know when we're doing wrong. And it's always your mother to tell you, you're wrong. And you can't ever really argue with that.
Yeah. And one of the things that happened when I decided to leave college, this is after the Olympics and gold medal. Let me just expound a little bit on the '68 Olympics, because it was a black boycott. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar did not participate in that Olympics, as well as Elvin Hayes and Wes Unseld. So they were looking for someone to replace those three players, and lo and behold, they found this 19-year-old boy from Detroit and Silver City, Mississippi, without a passport. And so that
Well,
was me.
Spencer,
So we won.
Spencer, I think you should sneak in and tell him. Like I said, I don't want to reveal everything, but maybe tell them how they found your passport, or
Okay.
or what
Well,
they
the
decided to be your passport.
Yeah. Well, what happened was the Olympic Committee was like, hey, you know, you got to get your birth certificate and everything. And I was like, I'll call my mom and see where she's have it hidden someplace in the home down in Mississippi. So they called my mom, and she come over to the grocery store because we were looking for a phone. She didn't have phones at the time. And she says, yes, I got the boy's birth certificate right here. It's under John 21 in my Bible. And so we had to go, instead of a cameraman from Jackson, the Jackson Daily News newspaper, to Silver City, took a picture of it. We get the picture of the passport, I mean of the Bible and everything. They go up to Jackson and transfer it over to a birth certificate, and on the birth certificate it was called Spency, not Spencer, because the midwife couldn't spell Spencer, so she spelled Spency. And so that was my journey into getting that.
That's
passport.
your real name. Your real name is Spencer Haywood, not Spencer.
Good point. Good point. Yeah.
We gotta change the name of the book.
Well, I got up
to the Spency. It should be.
Got up north and changed my name to Spencer.
One of your many nicknames now, right?
Yeah. Well, Matt Lucas was my favorite nickname because he was always trying to get out of Mississippi. He was just trying to escape. And he sang songs, and he was like this person that was always trying to get something done. So Matt was my guy. That's my original name.
Alter ego.
My alter ego.
Yeah.
And that song was, one of these days, and it won't be long, you're gonna look for Matt Lucas. Matt Lucas will be gone. And one day he was gone.
So do you want to talk about more favorite parts of the book before we kind of talk about the future of the league here and then open it up to some questions? Any other favorite parts of the book?
No, I don't want to tell them no more about the book unless they got questions about it. I want to say who read it.
Mark,
I don't want to tell them the whole book. We need people to buy the book.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm biased. I agree.
Well, kind of like tell them a little bit about the Supreme Court ruling so that they will know how they got there.
Please, thank you.
Yeah. Well, what happened was, you know, before I came along, you had to wait for 4 years for your class to graduate after 4 years after high school or 4 years in college before you could go into the NBA. No exceptions, no nothing. And so when I decided to leave college as a sophomore, I went to the ABA, and after that I went to the NBA. The NBA said, no, you can't play in this league. And so that's when I filed suit for the rights to play, and they filed an injunction not to play. And so the case just kept rolling and rolling and rolling all the way to the Supreme Court. I won't tell y'all how we got there. Mark won't let me do that. Read the book.
Yeah, read the
Great
book.
stuff. Great stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's a journey.
We'll go to the question.
And you know, from that ruling, I can say one thing. From that ruling, we've made in salary revenue for players since 1970 and 71 until today, we're clocking in at player revenue somewhere around $30 billion for players.
Yeah.
See you.
And I don't get nothing.
Yeah, that is
Get the Netflix series.
Tell
Get my
Giannis
name on the ruling.
Giannis,
well, Giannis, what do
give you a little something?
What did he get? 225?
Yeah, man. Must be
Whoa.
nice.
Must
So,
be
hey,
nice.
yeah, on that note, Spencer, when you hear about a guy getting $225 million over 5 years. What are your thoughts? I mean, it's a different time, certainly, but I think you definitely deserve credit for paving the way for some of these guys. And I wonder, do they ever say thank you to you?
I pat myself on the back, but I would hope that these young players eventually just meet one time. I mean, Michelle Roberts at the Players Association and Adam Silver at the NBA, they want to name this rule what it is, the Spencer Haywood rule. And if the players are aware, they should do that. And I pat myself on the back because I think I was a part of some of those players' lives, most of those players' lives, because they were able to get into the league and play for 4 years without losing 3 years in college or 4 years in college. They got 4 years on their playing career. They got 4 years on their legs. They got 4 years on their stats. So it's pretty powerful stuff. So I'm just proud of them. And I'll tell you one thing, I get into arguments with the old heads, all of the Hall of Famers, and they always say I'm taking sides with the young guys. But I look at when Michael Jordan and Magic and all of those guys played, and when Bill Russell and all played, we had like 14 teams. We didn't have European players. We didn't have all of the things. So, and when they went through what they went through in the bubble, I mean, they won me over. I was like, whoa, these guys have evolved into these great players. And I just love what I see in basketball today. I really do.
Hey, Spencer, me and Gary were in the bubble too, man. We don't get a shout out for being in the bubble for 90 days.
Yeah, that's right. I get the shout out because y'all was right in that bubble. That's beautiful, man. Y'all hung through it. You learned how to fish.
Yeah.
I did.
Mark, did you learn how to fish down there?
I did.
Marc Jacques Cousteau now.
Yeah.
He became
What did you do, Gary? You didn't post anything on what you were doing.
I post a lot. I fished twice with Mark. I did a lot of, believe it or not, I run. So I ran a lot. And I honestly just did a lot of work. There wasn't a lot to do in the bubble.
Yeah.
But it was definitely a lot of work and a lot of good, to meet a lot of people, because it was a pretty amazing experience, and to see everybody from the NBA walking around, because it was kind of a campus environment. So yeah, I figured out things to do.
It was a weird dream. I give Gary credit because, like, I got shout out to Kevin Merritt and Raina Kelly, two of my bosses. I begged them to give me a bike, and so I was riding a bike every day in the bubble and trying to do a lot of it before it got too hot. Man, Gary was out there running at 1 p.m., Spencer. When it was like blazing hot.
Yeah, in the middle of summer in Orlando. Yeah, it was hot. Yeah, I enjoyed
out there running that circle, boy. You're proud of it.
Yeah.
Spencer, can you discuss the flack? Because I just don't think people enough talk about the flack from the fellow NBA players. Like they didn't all pat you on the back. I know some guys, when you won your case and you were able to play in the NBA, welcomed you, and many others didn't. And that hurts you.
That hurt because of the fact that I was tagged as this militant, as this person that is destroying, and the NC2A tagged me as the person who is destroying college basketball, and the income that would derive from players staying 4 years would never be matched or anything. And then the ABA decided to put a lot of words out on me that I was a malcontent and I was never going to be happy. And the NBA players and the owners had told all of their players, whatever you do, don't support him, because what he's going to bring to the table is he's going to bring a lot of young players into the league, and these young players are going to push you out, and your family is going to be out on the street. So players were clotheslining me, and they did not support me. The union did not support me at all. And so I was out there all along until one night in Milwaukee when Kareem said, "Hey, I'm not going downstairs. I'm going to stay upstairs, and I'm going to greet Spencer Haywood." And that's when it kind of broke a little bit. But for the rest of my life, and the rest of my career in the NBA, I was always that person that they could always say, well, you know, we got drug problems in the NBA. Well, if Spencer got out, he's the problem. So, and I, you know, I did have the problem, and I did have mental health issues that I hadn't addressed because I had PTSD from Mississippi, and that case really did push me over the top there. And so I just started to get myself together and understand that life is different. And once I get the necessary help, and I think my daughter, Dr. Shakira Haywood, is on here. She's a psychologist and psychiatrist. And so, so hey, I mean, I've learned so much about myself and about mental health. And I think that right now, those NBA players should have counseling on hand available. And not only that, but they should also be accepting to it, because, you know, you can have a bad game and you can have a horrible game. And if you had someone to talk it out with, instead of like sitting in the room and saying, man, I don't know what I did wrong. I missed that free throw. That free throw is gone. You know, that game is gone. You got to focus on the next one. So I think that would be the next evolution I would like to see in the NBA.
And a lot of players, the social media.
Yeah, I did.
The social media aspect, these, you know, you didn't have that, but these guys go home and look on the computer and Twitter's beating them up and all the, yeah. I mean, it's just like they have some things that our generation even, and especially your generation, didn't have to deal with in terms of the scrutiny.
So Spencer,
yeah. Well, let me ask a question about Curt Flood. Curt Flood was fighting for free agency for baseball. Curt Flood and I was at the Supreme Court at a similar time, and so was Muhammad Ali. And Curt, when he finished with his case, he said, I cannot live in America anymore because they have ostracized me. And they're going to do the same thing for you, Spence. So, but you're young, hang in there, I'm leaving. And he left the country for 30 years or more, I think. And when he came back, and baseball was like, he would go around the clubhouse and they would introduce him and stuff. Players had no idea what he had did and what it's all about. And so that hurt him so much. And shortly after that, he passed on because of a broken heart, you know. And that's what I always use my guideline as, you know, I wish these players acknowledge me and name this ruling the Spencer Haywood rule, so that, you know, it's something that I earned. It's not something that I'm asking for. This is earned, because you have the Larry Bird rule, which is my rule. They changed it to give it to Larry. And you have the Oscar Robertson rule, which is there for free agency with the NBA as well. So, but you have the Spencer Haywood rule has been called one and done, early entry, hardship, all of these different names, when it's just one name. It's just a Supreme Court rule. It's the Spencer Haywood rule. So I'm looking forward to that day, because I don't want to live angry. I don't want to feel broken and hurt. And so I've been hanging on to get this book done so that, you know, players could understand what I went through, because it's like really some trying stuff. It took me 27 years to get into the Hall of Fame when I was qualified. And I had 3 years of like disappointment when my name would come up and I would get to the finals, and then they would say, nah, he ain't repentant. He hasn't repented enough. So, finally I got it. You know.
How do you get in? I mean, who has to change that name for you? Is it the NBA? Is it the Players Association? Like, how do you make that happen?
Well, it's a simple thing. If Chris Paul, LeBron James, and those guys say, no longer are we going to tolerate this rule being called one and done, the Spencer Haywood rule, this is like Black Lives Matter, Black History Matter, all of these things should be taking place right now. They just need to change it. And I'm sure, Adam, at the NBA have no gripes, because I sued them. I sued on behalf of the players. So the players are the ones should just change the name to what it is. Simple thing, but, you know, because they don't know who I am, they have no idea, so they don't know. But because of you guys' great work, they're beginning to know. It's beginning to happen. LeBron just did a piece with me on what is it called? Shut Up and Dribble. He did a segment on Showtime where he paid homage. Really good stuff. It's about 8 minutes or 7 minutes or so, but it was powerful. I was like, whoa, I didn't know you liked me.
So that's an interesting segue, because first you said he was the player that reminds you of you most. And I don't think people understand, as a rookie for the Denver Rockets, you went as a 19, 20-year-old, you went for 30 and 20, like 30 points, 20 rebounds. Like that hasn't been done since. Like we talk about, 30 and 20, that's Wilt Chamberlain numbers and that's it. And you went for that as a rookie for the Denver Rockets. And you said LeBron James was a player who reminded you of you the most.
Yes, he did, because he has the body and the makeup of it, and he passed a lot better than me. And Mark, my hands were sticky, so when the ball got there, I kind of like gripped onto it a little bit. But I just admire his game. I admire him as a person. There are some other guys that I really like, because I played a long game, so I was long and stretchy like Giannis. And I could shoot like Durant outside. And so it's a combination of all of these players. And I just want them to see some footage of me and all that old stuff. So the NBA is putting together a nice collage for me so that these players can see what this guy was like. Because, we didn't have all of our footage from Seattle. And that's when I was like really burning up the courts. And so, but there was no footage. And there is footage now that they're cleaning up.
Should we answer some of the questions, guys?
I think so. I think I'm gonna have to just really quickly go through and try to comb a little bit, and then I'll let you two, if that's okay. Because our first two questions, we do have two very young viewers. I just want to make sure their questions kind of get touched on, if that's okay. And then I'll let Mark and Gary take it over. So we have both a 9-year-old and we have, I think, a 7-year-old here. We have 7-year-old Salim and we have 9-year-old Sam. And Sam's actually doing a class called SEED, Seeking Equity, Equality, and Diversity. And so I think we've touched on a few of the answers for you, Sam, so far. But can you take just maybe two of Sam's questions, and then we'll go to Salim's question, and then I'll hand it over to Gary and Mark to choose the rest. So Sam, I hope we answered most of your questions already, because he's got like 5. But can we ask, what did you like, dunking or shooting more? And then how do you see your basketball career creating equity? I chose those two because I think you touched on the other answers and you're going to touch on them too. But did you like dunking?
Well, I like shooting more.
Shooting?
Yeah, I like shooting more because Sam, back in the day, in 68 and 67 and so on, you could not dunk. It was illegal to dunk in college as a player.
Mm-hmm.
So you had to learn how to shoot, you had to learn how to touch. And the equity situation, like I said, well, let me give you an example. Say a guy like LeBron James, he's making 43, 45 million a year. And he got 4 extra years of that. So I look at like, well, I made a contribution to him in terms of his equity around $200 million. So that's the equity, and it goes all the way down to Giannis and to Durant, Steph Curry, all of those players. I remember one of the players told me once, and he was like, come over and meet these guys, and to meet LeBron and to meet Carmelo. These guys only played 1 year, and I played 3. And I was like, but you are under the rule too. So it's just, it's a history lesson. And thank you, Sam, for asking those wonderful questions.
And thank you for that too. And so Sam, I hope that helps with your report. And you can go back and rewatch this again on YouTube later. We'll send that out after the event so that you can rewatch all the answers and come up with other answers from all the great info we got here on this event later. And then the next one is from Salim, and this is our 7-year-old. And Salim is asking, so, choose your words on this one. I wanted to ask how hard it was to get into the NBA and how much did you have to practice? If you can even know how to answer that one.
Well, Well, anyway, the four daughters, my daughters' athletes were athletes as well. They played Division I basketball and tennis. And so for me, it was hard, but it was easy for me to get into the NBA because I had worked so hard in the cotton field and I was used to working 12 hours a day. So playing 2-3 hours a day of basketball was like boring because I wanted to play more, but they would always close the gym on me. So yeah, just work real hard and the WNBA is waiting.
Well, those were our kind of primary young viewers questions I wanted to ask. So I'll turn it over to Gary and Marc now to check out the middle column here and see if there's any they want to pass along that they would also like to hear Spencer answer maybe.
We got our buddy Carvis Jones said, why do you think it was important to write this book during this time? And what message do you want NBA fans to know around the world in the years to come? Go ahead, Gary, on that one.
Oh, Gary.
I guess the message in this book to me is just overcoming adversity. Spencer's story, I mean, my goodness, he grew up in 1950s and 1960s Mississippi. And I think over the last, I don't know, 8-9 months, we've seen, and you know, all the struggle the country's going through. Just imagine that the things that we're going through now, essentially 50, 60 years ago, where I mean, Spencer's life was so disposable. Someone could have walked up to Spencer and just hit him over the head with a pipe and walked away. A jury would have acquitted him. Spencer would have been dead and life would have gone on. You know, and that was as simple. And I'm sure Spencer has friends and people he knew that did not make it over something as simple like that. Walking on the wrong side of the street, not smiling or not having your head down when you looked, when you approached a white person, things like that. And the fact that he was literally a cotton picker and made it to this level. I mean, I think it's an American story. It's a story for everyone to follow. And he changed the face of the NBA. There's no Kobe, there's no Moses Malone, there's no Kevin Garnett, there's no Kevin Durant, there's no LeBron. Without him fighting this fight, this was a fight. And I wanted Spencer to talk about the night that he met Thurgood Marshall. We've seen the movie, him played by, unfortunately, the late Chadwick Boseman, but the night you met Thurgood Marshall, I mean, that had to be, I know you said you gave some good stuff in the book about just kind of concentrating on the food, but just to meet one of the premier people, the more powerful people of the 20th century, a Black hero. I mean, and just that's what this brought you from the cotton fields of Mississippi.
Yeah. Well, first, you know, he had heard the case and he led the charge in my case because this case was won under the Sherman Antitrust Act. And Thurgood was like very adamant in the idea that how are we sending all of these young men to Vietnam to fight in another country and die? And yet his mother is in Mississippi picking cotton for $2 a day and he can't make any money to save her. And yet your college revenue is in the billions, or at that time was in the millions, you know? So he was just this special person. And then when we got a chance to take a break and we were playing the Baltimore Bullets, and I met with him, and it was like Will Robinson knew him well, and all of the great Black men of that era knew each other. And then I met with him, and I was so busy with my head down and so enthused about that steak that was being served to us. And I was like, I want another steak. I want another steak. So I didn't get a chance to feel in and get the joy out of what he had did for me and what he was all about, because I was young and I was just saying, give me more steak, food, baby.
Spencer, they have Hakeem Harris had a question. And he said, what's your favorite ABA story that you can tell? And maybe I'll add to that that's maybe not in the book.
The favorite ABA story I can tell you about is the night that I took off from half court and I just flew from half court all the way to the basket. But no, that's a lie. So the famous story is, it's my first game in the ABA. I always think about this. And I mean, you know, Coach John McGlendon, who was with Naismith down in Kansas, and he was my coach in Denver. First Black coach in basketball other than a player. And he kept telling me, you know, like the 3-point players, don't run out on those boys, you know. So I'm playing against Kentucky. So we got coming down the floor and I'm backed up and I'm set back in the middle. I'm like, nobody's driving this basket. I'm going to block anything coming this way. And the 2 players veered out to the 3-point line, and was Louis Dampier and Dale Carey, I think it was. And they started firing those 3-pointers up at me. And I was like, man, this is going to be fun. You could see that red, white, and blue ball, the spin on it, the beauty of it. And you know, so when I got into the NBA, I remember my first big night in Seattle, because in an ABA, you had a theatric part to it, because you had young guys who were like a little theatrics to it. So I grabbed the ball off and I kicked it out to Lenny Wilkins, another Hall of Fame, and he pushing the ball up and he gave it to me, and I'm taking off from the free throw line, and I dunked it, and I turned around to the audience and said, yeah! And they said, ooh, he's a hot dog, because the NBA, they were like straight laced, so they didn't appreciate that kind of stuff. But later on, and maybe 10 games in, they were like really enthused about, show me that dunk, show me that dunk. So it's all from the ABA, and the ABA was just such an awesome place to play. And it's a great place to go to a workshop and learn how to experiment and to do things. So it was like a combination of all those wonderful things. And I didn't jump from half court either.
No. Let's find another question. Considering, this from Bobby Hike, considering today's social justice climate, what is a lesson that a reader can learn to apply to their everyday lives from the book, whether they are a sports fan or not? That's a good question. I want to see if Gary and Spencer could answer that.
Go ahead, Spencer.
You're going to learn the ups and downs of life. You're going to understand the survival, the beauty of this country. And sometimes we've lost our way right now. And to be a young man from Silver City, Mississippi, 3 years before, and then here I am standing on the podium receiving my gold medal at the Olympics. And all I could do is just cry, because I couldn't go into the bathrooms in Silver City. I couldn't go to the water fountain. I couldn't do anything. I was just, you know, ostracized in this community. And yet in a 3-year period, here I am standing on the podium in Mexico City, receiving a gold medal and the flag draped around my body. And my mom always said, baby, it ain't gonna get no better than America. And she was right.
Hey, Gary, I'm gonna jump in here because Grady asked a good question that I can answer quickly, but maybe it was deeper for you. Grady Diaz asked, were there any part of Spencer's life that could have been chapters that were left out? If so, can you talk about one that didn't make the final cut? And I will say, I wrote everything he talked about. I didn't cut anything out. I know we, as journalists, we write stories and a lot of things get edited out, but I pretty much wrote everything that Spencer said. Gary, did you cut anything out?
No, there's some things I felt we could have expanded, like the time with the Lakers, just some of those stories, and some of them are not G-rated. You know, kind of just you know, the nightlife, and Spencer kind of taking a bite out of the Big Apple, and also taking a bite out of Los Angeles during that time, and some of the troubles. You know, we did make the Nike story a chapter, and I thought that was, I think that's a fascinating story of kind of not knowing a lot, and it happened to more than one athlete, not knowing what Nike was about to be, and kind of, you know, you guys have to read the book to get the Nike story. I I think Spencer had so many aspects of his life that we could have expounded on, from his childhood, just as Marc described, the events, working at a golf course, obviously, and being a caddy, to golfers who spit at him and hit golf balls at him and his friends, and used them for jokes and all the above, all the way till just recently making the Hall of Fame. I mean, Spencer's had a bout with prostate cancer that he beat. He's a cancer survivor, so we didn't expound on that. But if anything, I mean, if you see his story, he has overcome everything, and finally getting to the Hall. And I just remember being there that night and him having to tell he had game. I mean, don't let the ball head fool. I had a nice flowing fro. And I dunk on you at any time. And I was going for 30 and 20. And I hope the young people especially appreciate what he brought to the game. And now you have Google and YouTube. Look up his numbers. Look up those numbers in those Seattle days. And you in the time when there was no 3-point shot. Now you look, oh, James Harden averaged 30-something points a game. Yeah, you got a 3-point shot. Like, there was no 3-pointer in the NBA until 1979. So all these guys you think are old and antiquated and playing in Chuck Taylors, they were putting up mad points with no 3-point shot, except in the ABA. But in the NBA, no 3-point shot until 1979. So Spencer his story. There was so many aspects that we could have expounded on to make it a 500-page book.
We're running out of time, right?
Yeah, I think we only take maybe 1 or 2 more tops.
Why don't you want to have some fun with?
Oh.
Of all the guys you've played with, what is your all-time starting 5 of your former teammates?
All-time starting 5 is at center.
Not including yourself.
Not included, but Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. At one guard, Irvin Magic Johnson. At the off guard is Walt Frazier. And at the forward, I love Bob McAdoo. I love Bob McAdoo at the big forward. And at the small forward, because he was such an interesting player, Jamal Wilkes would come to mind first, but I love Bill Bradley because I learned so much playing with him at the Knicks, even though he was over the hill with his game, but he was teaching me so much about life and about what was going to take place in life. And so I was always impressed with him.
And Gary, should we go out with this predictions on who's going to be in the finals and who wins?
Yeah, that's cool.
All right, Gary, you go first.
Oh, wow. I was going to take some time to think about it when everybody else answered. Well, I guess, the Lakers seem to have ramped up. They're a better team than they were last year. And now they got this new Taylor Horton Tucker kid who didn't play much last year. Now he's scoring 30 in the preseason. So you got to give it to the Lakers. In the East, I don't know who comes out the East. The East is going to be fascinating because there's so many good teams in the East. But I'll say the Lakers repeat. That's not because I'm born and raised.
Who's making it out the East?
Oh boy.
The Celtics.
People watching too, Gary.
I'm not gonna say the Celtics. I don't think the Celtics will make out of these. I'll give it to Milwaukee. I'll say Giannis, newly signed, their improvements. Isn't quite right to me about Brooklyn. Toronto lost a little bit. The Celtics may be a player away. We'll see what happens if they and add someone. But I'll say Milwaukee.
I got Brooklyn playing the Lakers. KD winning the championship for Brooklyn. How's that?
Wow.
All right, before we get to Spencer, Miss Bookshop, what's your prediction?
It's quarantine. I don't even have an office bracket this year. I don't even have
your feelings. Who do you think?
I know you're a LeBron fan.
Am I allowed to say Brooklyn just because I'm in New York right now? Is that a cop-out?
No, I said it.
All right, I'll delete this part of the video if I take it back, but we'll keep the rest of this event.
You got Brooklyn winning it?
I'll edit it out otherwise.
All right, Spencer, who you got?
Yes, Spencer.
I have the Lakers taking the West, and I have Milwaukee taking the East because of the point guard they picked up from what's his name, Drew Holiday.
Yeah.
Drew Holiday is going to be a difference in Milwaukee, and Milwaukee have all of the other pieces. So this guy and his spirit is so right. He's so godly. He's so caring. So I know this is not supposed to interfere in basketball, but it does. It makes a difference. So I think you're going to see the two. And, the Lakers look like they're going to take a repeat, but Milwaukee is going to be trouble.
So you're picking Milwaukee?
No, I'm picking the Lakers. I'm a Laker.
1980 champion. I had that post. I had the picture. I mean, back then they didn't have like all the memorabilia, but on my wall in my room, I was able to get like an 8.5 by 11 picture of the team, like when I was growing up. So I put you get a thumbtack now. You get all the, and we'll put it on my wall. So that's my all-time favorite team. That was the first Laker title team I remember as a young person. I remember like I wanted to go to the championship, and I had to go to my my classmates' like 10th birthday party. So I was so upset because it was the same day. Like, who throws a birthday party on a Saturday afternoon with the Lakers? But so I mean, I just remember your picture on the wall. Obviously, when I was younger. So I mean,
I wasn't born yet, Gary.
Yeah. Okay. Moving forward. We take one more question, or is that?
I think that's it.
It's up to the group. It's 9. It's
an
hour 4 minutes.
One more question, if everybody wants to. Let me see here from Chris Scott. This is an interesting question, Spencer. What more can be done to empower former players like yourself to help educate current athletes about their struggles and to be more civic minded? What can the old heads help out with the young heads to be more? And I think they've taken a step forward after the George Floyd situation in the bubble, but what more can you guys do to school young NBA and current NBA players that it wasn't all peaches and cream, and you guys went through some hard stuff, and for them to be more active in their communities, et cetera?
Yeah, well, I was former chairman of the board for the NBA retired players up until this year, and my term ran out, but I was lobbying for them players to have the relationship of both unions, the current union with the retired players, because we have so much to offer them and they have so much they can offer us. And by the way, I was able to lobby and ask the players for health insurance, which we didn't have before. And the current players have put between $15.5 to $16 million into our health benefits, and that has saved so many lives and of the former players, as well as they have increased our pension. And so they can do a lot more. I've always said as chairman, I wanted to see the young players pay that $3,500 to become members of the NBA retired players. That way you can have, put some money in our coffers, and also you can help to pay some of those players who maybe taking their pension early. And, you got guys like Oscar Robertson and all of the greats out here. These guys did not they made like $75,000 a year. So, y'all, when they come around you guys, and y'all like, hey man, the big O, ooh man, the big O. But, do something, step up, because you have to. And this man took it, he didn't take the brunt of what I took, but he took some other stuff. So, look at Oscar, and don't just look at his triple doubles and who he is, but look for these players and look at these guys and say, hey, I can, all the players have basketball camps and stuff. And I've been lobbying for those players. Like, how could you have a basketball camp and don't have Oscar Robertson there? How could you have a basketball camp, don't have Bill Russell there? You got all of these lackeys around you. Get the retired players involved. They can tell you what's going on. They have lived this experience. I've lived that experience. So we need to be around, and we can hedge you, put a hedge around you so that you won't have fall like I did or like someone else did. This could be prevented. This could be some preventive medicine. But for years, you know, the management and ownership and agents are telling the young players, no, don't talk to the old guys, man. They got anger management, and they got all the other problems. But no, they just want to be recognized and recognized for what they have done and what they have paved the way for. So education, the best education you can do right now is to name this ruling the Spencer Haywood rule. And the second one is to buy this book.
There you
And
go.
remember,
yeah, Spencer.
it is fair.
One more thing, Spencer. I know
history right here.
I know you have a dream of something. You have a plan. You want to put something into action to help your older brethren that you want to do in Las Vegas, right?
Yeah, well, I guess I'll tell you ahead of time. I have the Spencer Haywood Foundation, and I have asked that the players, because they're using my ruling, to put in $10,000. They get the tax deduction. But what I'm building is a retirement center for the NBA and the WNBA and the ABA players so that they will have a place to lay their head. And like I said, just in the last 2 weeks, I've had 2 of my former players dying on the street for the lack of a place to stay. So we need to take care of those players. This is not a big deal. This is not like crazy money. I could have asked you guys for $1 million, but I said $10,000. So, and it's tax deductible. Yeah, I've been with those players at Caesar's Palace and all the other places where they drop that kind of money, and, man, on wine. Yeah. On wine, I'm serious.
Which I think what people don't understand is that a lot of the older players, and we talk about the old days and nostalgically, but they didn't have the health training, the conditioning. Now every NBA staff is 15 guys, conditioning coaches. You didn't have that. You guys played Chuck Taylors and Adidas. You guys played on hard floors. You played in the conditions that literally beat up your body. And what I figured out, one, a lot of these young men and women now with the WNBA have leg conditions where hips replacement knee, they can't work out in their 40s and 50s, so they gain weight, or they're not healthy. Yeah. They don't have the medical insurance to cover these costs, and you were able to get the current players to help to get medical insurance, because a lot of former NBA players are dying of heart issues because they weren't getting heart screenings, things like that. And now, like you said, you want to open up a home to where these older players can have a comfortable place to live. Some of these guys, they're on basketball cards and we idolize them, but some of these guys are literally making $40,000 a year. I mean, they were making pennies compared to the average NBA salary now is $7 to $8 million. You're talking about for a player at the end of the bench. The NBA minimum salary is $2.3 million per year. That's just the minimum. That's like, here's a little something for you, and that's $2.3 million a year. And guys feel, and obviously your highest paid players are 40 and 50 million, but it just seems like a shame that the younger players are unaware of these issues.
Yeah, well, that's why it's important that we talk about this book and about the movement, because this could be a movement. And I'll tell you, once you explain to those players, you get past all of the defense and the guardrails they have up. And once you sit down and talk with them, they're like, oh, that's no big deal. So I've been working on this program to build this retirement center for years, and it's coming close. It's coming close. And thanks to you two for writing this wonderful book about me. I mean, it's starting to get its own legs, and we're going to be able to take care of our players like they do with the Screen Actors Guild. They have a retirement center for all of the old actors. Baseball is now developing a place for their players, football as well. So it's time that basketball do the same. And it's under the Spencer Haywood rule, and it's under the Spencer Haywood Foundation.
Let's push for that. Man. Let's push for that. It's the least you deserve, the least that you deserve.
I never asked them for anything. I just wanted to do this. I want to to support my foundation so I can build this center. That's all I want. And I'm out of here.
Guys, man, I love you both. Thank you, Bookshop. Anything else you guys want to add before we get out of here?
I just want to thank the Bookshop. And I just want to thank you people who are participating with us on this Zoom, as well as go out and get the book. And it's not a sale thing, but this book will change your life because it gives you all of you're going to have some falls in life, but it will show you how to get back up. It teaches you about humility. It teaches you about life in itself. So I advise you to instead of buying a drink tonight, buy the book and you'll be all right.
Yeah.
Everyone, Spencer Haywood for the Spencer Haywood Rule out now. You can buy it in the link shared after this event on bookshop.org and support independent bookstores too. Wow, Gary Washburn and Marc J Spears, co-authors, and what an important event and important messages in Spencer. I would like to just speak on behalf of maybe everyone here saying it is so rewarding to know that your work is finally, we hope, on the way to be recognized in the way that it deserves, and the time is here and coming, and we're so glad. And thank you for being with us, all three of you.
One more thing, in my Hall of Fame speech, I closed my speech by saying, it may not come when you want it, but it's always right on time. And so this is God's time. So it's that time. And I think this is the right time for all things. And I really appreciate my writers. I appreciate you. I appreciate Andrea. I mean, this is just so beautiful.
Mark, you want to give some shout outs?
No. I just want to thank everybody for listening and hanging in with us. And I will say, I think Spencer's right. This is certainly a book with a lot of lessons, and it's, even if you're not the biggest basketball fan in the world, it's worth your time.
I like to thank my mom. My mom's on here, and she is, I think it's her first ever Zoom event or Zoom anything.
Oh, wow.
I'm blessed that she's here. And thank my partner Anya for getting her on. So yeah, but thank everybody for showing the interest and buy the book. And it's a fascinating story, and hopefully Mark and I will be able to tell more stories of more athletes because I think these men have so many journeys and stories to tell, and we want to tell.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Mom.
Thank you all.
Bye.
See you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Thank you.
Later.